Hello, everyone. I'm Randy Arrington, and welcome to the 53rd episode of Page Valley Livin. We're kicking off year 2 of Page Valley Living here, being in conversation with Page County's 3 mayors. And we start off here today in Luray Town Hall in the Luray Council Chambers with newly elected Mayor Stephanie Lillard here today. It was about a year ago that we sat in almost these very same seats and talked to Miss Lillard about her campaign for mayor. And back in November, she was elected and became the first elected female mayor of Luray in its long, long history. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And we're also going to be talking about some of the accomplishments and things that happened in 2024 and what we can look ahead to in 2025 in the town of Luray. We'll talk about all of that and much more in just a moment, but first, a word from our sponsor.
Hawksbill Assisted Living in Luray is now accepting new admissions. Hawksbill Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, offers quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, and veterans aid and attendance. Come visit Hawksbill Assisted Living, located near the beautiful Hawksbill Greenway in Luray. Call for a tour today or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com.
Episode 53 of Page Valley Livin' is being recorded on Sunday, January the 12th, and will first air on Wednesday, January the 15th. Again, we're here with newly elected Mayor Stephanie Lillard of the town of Luray. We're in the town hall and town council chambers. And Stephanie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. It's always a pleasure.
Appreciate you taking the time here on the weekend out of your family time to be with us. I'm going to start off with a couple of quick things just about the election in general. And I want to give compliments to you and Councilman Ron Vickers on running a very civil and clean election. Is that something you guys talked about?
We didn't have intentional discussion about it, no. However, early on when we were talking about the upcoming election and understanding that our current mayor, well, previous mayor now, right, was no longer intending to run or seek re-election, rather, there was conversation amongst council about who would be interested. And Ron and I, we had a couple conversations over probably the last quarter of that year. And so it wasn't a surprise to him that I was interested, but it kind of was a surprise to me, if I'm being honest, when I learned that he was going to be running. And so we got together after he had shared that sentiment at a public event, and he said, "Well, I think that the people need options. They should have options." And so I said, "Well, I fully respect that." And he said, "Well, I think you'll be a great mayor," and I felt the same about him. Ron and I were friends first before we ever became, council members, and my time serving, being his chair neighbor, if you will, allowed us to get to know one another, much closer. And I have great regard for him. I've said it many times, Ron's a good human. And so it ended kind of just, it doesn't have to be awkward if we don't make it awkward, so let's not do that. And yeah.
Well, I thought it was a very, very civil race. Interesting that y'all sat next to each other during council meeting as well. But I thought it was very civil, very good. And in November, somewhat of a close race, not as close as down in Stanley or in Shenandoah, certainly because Shenandoah came down to really just a few votes. But you became the first female mayor of Luray in 212 years. About time, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's a very humbling, reality. It is.
No, very good. Well, it's a piece of history, and congratulations on that. And the last thing we'll say about the mayor is that now, are you officially mayor? Have you taken the oath of office?
I am. Yes. I met Grayson up at the courthouse on Monday, December the 30th, and got sworn in and submitted my paperwork to Danielle, and yeah, it's official.
I wasn't sure because I know officially the term starts January 1, but with the snow and the weather we've had, I wasn't sure if the actual oaths of office had taken place. So it's all official, and everybody ready to go for tomorrow night's council meeting you all have on the 13th tomorrow night. That's your first meeting of 2025. So let's get into it. Excuse me one second. Let's talk about 2024. I'm going to open it up to you here to start us off. What do you feel like, or maybe 2 or 3 of the top things that the town accomplished over the past year?
Sure. Well, and that's going to be difficult because I can name a dozen or more if easily. And so I'm very proud of the work that the town done. Our staff, we have incredible staff, and so there was a lot of impactful projects and efforts deployed in 2024. And so just if I had to name a few, first and foremost, I think preparing to wrap up, we have still the 2025 by September to get the last of the ARPA dollars spent. However, the decisions and allocations for those have all been made, and that was no small feat. We did it all internally. Our staff managed that, and so very proud of the management of the funds, but also how we put the funds to work for our community. And we actually just also wrapped up our annual fiscal year audit, and had an excellent report, clean audit with that, and so again kind of speaks to the competency and skill set that we have. And then just again thinking about the ARPA dollars though, and looking at our police department, our Parks and Rec, and Public Works, and all the infrastructure improvement that we done, that is not just making life easier on the job for our town staff, but also improving efficiency so we can continue to expand and excel in our service to our constituents.
And some of these water and sewer projects in particular, which is what the American Rescue Plan was set up to do, to improve infrastructure, these costly items that sometimes you have to get loans out and pay for years and years. I've heard several council members say that because of those federal dollars rolling in here, the town really is set up for maybe the next decade or two in a decent way because of things you were allowed to do.
Certainly it does, right. So we have our capital investment improvement plan, and having that $5 million allowed us to escalate. Yeah, some of the improvements and replacements that we knew we were going to have to do, and again was part of a long-term plan. And so yes, it'll serve us well as we move forward and looking at future budgets and revenues to support.
And one of those was the West Lou lift station, I think, because that's very important in terms of the growth we're seeing out there behind Walmart, and in both you've got the two shopping centers and all there, but now residential growth that's happening out there. So I know that was a big one as well. You've got a long list, so I'm going to let you hit on 2 or 3 more things maybe you want to talk about.
Okay, all right, sure. Well, thank you. So, with our Parks and Rec, I think that it's, we always are giving them accolades that are very deserving for what they do every day. But, seasonally, this year, again, we wrapped up a full slate of recreational and community events in partnership with our Main Street program, and seeing high attendance across the board regardless of the season in the event. And I think that signifies that we're doing something right. When you're seeing not just visitors, yes, but we're seeing more and more local faces, families and friends at the events. And for me, one of the things that was important when I decided to run, and now even more so in my role as mayor, is community pride and working on, letting folks know what it is that we're doing for them and at the Town of Luray government. And so, and then also just with the improvements up at Ralph Dean, so we have the pickleball court, and down on the plaza, with a grant that we received down there and able to do the cell shade, and just a lot of good work. With our police department, it's been a challenging year with staffing. But right now, Chief Cook is in a good place. We've got fully staffed police department, and again, through deployment of some of those funds, we were able to acquire some fleet enhancements and vehicles and some license plate readers, things that, again, back to what I was saying earlier, improves our ability to better serve our constituency. And I think it also helps to build the morale of the team when they've got, again, the tools available to them to do their jobs well. And then with Public Works, the electric water meters, again, that was no small feat, continues to roll over into this calendar year, but again, puts us in a position where what used to take 2 weeks of having our guys out reading meters on site, and now within a couple hours we've got the data at our fingertips, and much more succinct and accurate. And so again, all good work. I feel like I'm probably leaving a few out. We've got improvements also that we've seen at the wastewater treatment plant, and so just very exciting times we've been doing.
My mother-in-law kept asking me, what is that silver thing on the water, on the sidewalk there, on the water lid, and I was telling her about these digital meters. I think that's going to pay dividends for quite a while down the road, and that's great. Going back to a couple things you mentioned, the improvements that were made down at Ruffner Plaza through the T-Mobile grant, that is fantastic, because some of them people can see, like the what's it called, the wind sail, or
Yes.
but also just improvement in the electrical outlets and things that's available to the bands and the entertainment that shows up. I think those are great improvements at Ruffner. If I'm not mistaken, Imagination Station was rebuilt with some ARPA funds, I believe.
Yes, sir.
So that's a great project. And I remember even the group that originally did Imagination Station going out there before it was torn down to reminisce about the community effort and the community build that took place, almost like an old Amish barn raising. They got that piece of equipment up originally. So I think that's fantastic. Then there have been numerous improvements. One controversial topic that did come up during the year was potentially moving the visitor center. Are you happy with the outcome of that discussion?
I am. I'm happy with the outcome for our community. Yes, I am. I think that the train depot serves the visitor center well, and when visitors and locals go in, again, earlier I mentioned about community pride and just having taken ownership, right, in our assets, and that no argument to be made there is one of them. And it's both from a fiscal perspective, again, from a facilities, and also just being, again, a nice space that we can showcase the work from in the train depot and receive visitors. It provides a good space there for businesses to come and use who doesn't have conference space. So yes, I am very happy with where we're at today, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to maintain that.
I want to hit on one thing you talked about too, was the number of events that the town supports. I think that's very important. I know I've heard Councilman Pettit talk about during meetings of having some concern that the more things you add, the more things you have to do. And of course, we're adding more responsibilities onto our Parks and Rec department. Some of that's shared with LDI and other groups. But I don't think the importance of those events can be understated, because I think that's what builds. It's kind of the 4th of July is becoming something that Luray is known for.
Yes.
The Sunflower Festival is something that Luray is becoming known for. It's bringing people to our town. It's bringing people who are shopping and doing business here. And sometimes those visitors like it so much they wind up coming to stay here, or they come and buy property and open up a business here. So I think there are multiple benefits from doing that. And I personally would encourage you all to keep doing that. I think that's wonderful. Very, very quickly, we're going to wrap up this segment before we talk about next year, but I'm just going to mention a couple of little things. I know it didn't happen in the town, but I want to give a shout out to all of the volunteers with the Luray Volunteer Fire Department who fought those wildfires back in March.
Yes.
Did a tremendous job. And I want to give a shout out to the community who then supported them in a massive way. I think they were even a little taken aback about how much the community came up. The Memslem Inn, recently this past year, bought by 3 big-time owners, one being John Rutherford Allen, a 4-star general, retired 4-star general with the United States Marine Corps and former NATO commander, now owners of our Memslem Inn. Brian Chrisman, near the beginning of the year, you all took the interim off of his title, and he was named as town manager. Of course, coming up, we'll talk about, we've got a new mayor coming in and a new council member with Chuck Butler taking the seat. Luray Caverns marked the 50th anniversary of their national landmark designation. And something we'll talk about in a minute, the old art warehouse becoming apartment space and other usable space there. And I want to applaud the town for how they worked with Cooters in the Valley out there on coordinating for that massive weekend when 17,000 people came in for the big 25th anniversary that they had. I think the town is doing a great job. Before we go to the next segment, if there's anything else that you kind of want to bullet along, highlight before we move on.
Yeah, thank you. I was looking through. I did work with the staff to get a list together because I'm nervous about leaving anyone out. And I do believe it is worth mentioning as it relates to our. Listen, at the end of the day, when we talk about what is council's role, and it is to be a good steward of the dollars, ensure that we're keeping our streets safe, toilets are flushing, water's running, all the things. Part of that is, again, having our treasurer and her team in their roles, and we were happy to be able to celebrate that we did pay off two kind of semi-long-term debts. One was the Browns building note, and the other was Ralph Dean. And so what that means is that frees up
the land,
the notes that we had for improvements.
Okay.
Yeah, so for Ralph Dean, it was for some improvements some years ago, and then of course, as I mentioned, the Browns building note before the bridge, replacement. And so that's good, right? That what that does is, again, it reduces the town's overall debt. It's more money we can continue to invest in capital improvement and our staff and our community, and so worth noting.
Well, I would go back to Mr. Ralph Dean and past councils and say that I believe Luray has done a very good job of managing, being fiscally responsible, having a good reserve on hand, and still providing good services for the town. And I think the current council has carried on that tradition very well. Again, I think 2024 year was a pretty good year, I would think.
So good, so good. You know, going into the new year, and everyone's asked, well, how was your year, and what are your goals for the new? And so much, it was a lot of heavy things in 2024 for families and friends and across the board. But I think that in totality, our community was very blessed with a lot of good work and happenings in 2024.
A lot of good strides made in 2024 here in Luray in all areas, as we talked about just for a moment. We're going to come back in just a minute and look at maybe some ongoing projects and things that we're going to look out for in 2025. We'll do that in just a moment after we hear another word from our sponsor.
Whispering Pines Assisted Living is now accepting new admissions. Quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, memory support, and short-term respite stays are all offered by Whispering Pines Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, where home and heart meet. Call for a tour today on Leaksville Road in Luray, or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com.
Welcome back, everyone, here to Luray Town Hall. We're talking with newly elected Mayor Stephanie Lillard, and we talked about 2024, so now let's talk about 2025. And let's start out the conversation by pinpointing, if you had to pick one thing that you hope goes well, or that the town accomplishes or gets in motion, or if you had to pin it on one. I know there's probably 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, but if you had to pick one, what do you think would be a really good thing if you could look back a year from now and go, we got that done?
Our comprehensive plan. Because that's going to dictate so much of the future of what we do administratively, right, as it relates to development and we talk about housing and transportation and all the things. The comprehensive plan touches all components of the work that we do and how we serve.
Now, is that going to be done mostly at the planning commission level? I mean, I know the council has to eventually approve it, but much of the legwork might be done at that level. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, sir. So we have a group of good folks that will work on that. We had a community engagement session. Forgive me, I can't tell you the exact date, but it's been maybe a month ago. We're now up at the Livin. We're preparing to do another second public engagement session in March. So, and then there's other opportunities that people can weigh in, email, calls, drop in the office, talk to staff, or contact council or the commission, and collate all that information. And the commissioners will work amongst themselves and with staff, with the county GIS department, with Josh Hahn, to update that comprehensive plan.
And that is an important point to make. And I'm looking at all of you. Don't wait until an issue comes up that directly affects you and then complain. Now is your opportunity to say, hey, I think this should work a little differently, or whether it be with parks, whether it be with police or zoning or whatever it may be, short-term rentals. That's something they're addressing right now. Weigh in on these things. And if you missed the first one, you said another session is coming up maybe at the Livin in March?
Yes. I'm not sure if we'll use the Livin or not, but yes,
Okay.
in March. So stay tuned for those details. But
Right.
yes, I echo what Randy says. I encourage everyone to participate.
Yeah, let your voice be heard. And if you've had some things that you've been wondering about or want to see change, now is the time to kind of get your voice in there. I'll let you go ahead and hit one or two more. I've got a couple on my list, but let's see what else that you're looking at as big projects for the coming year.
Sure. So again, just not as in my role as mayor, but rather I was in this seat or the other. Continue to feel strongly about working on and improving communication to our constituency about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and again, trying to get feedback and input from our community is very important. But really, just the infrastructure, the work that we've been doing, the projects that we still have carrying over into 2025, seeing those implemented so that we can then move on and kind of get to where maybe the public can start seeing some of the return from it. Much of that, I think it's a blessing and a curse, right? We're stay so busy doing a lot of kind of what's behind the curtain,
Right,
under the ground,
right.
and people don't know. And so where we'll be in a position this year, I'm excited to be able to kind of start showing the return on those investments, both our staff and financial investments. But thinking about housing and transportation and understanding right now the kind of the crisis nationwide, nationwide. It's not just in Luray, Virginia. It's all around. And so I'm excited as we continue to think about how we can foster development that is sensible and affordable for our community. And the transportation, we have that study that we're working with the PDC on.
Yes.
So I'm very interested in seeing what that returns. And then the parks and Greenway, as we talked about some of those projects already. But again, I think as we continue to add on, yes, it is going to be a liability and a cost to the town. But when we talk about how can we best serve and meet our folks where they're at, give them things to do on the weekends and the evenings, the families, that's where it's at. It's in our parks on the Greenway.
I'm going to throw a couple bullet points at you and just maybe comment about very briefly, because I'm going to kind of go boom, 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 maybe kind of generally where we're at and what we might see of this year. I know this is a 2-year project at least, but the apartments over at the Art Warehouse, where are we at and what might we see?
Yeah, and I'm so excited about that project and grateful for the investor and their foresight. And as it relates to timeline, I can't give you right now an update on what that looks like.
Sure.
I did meet with Brad over there.
But they've got the parking stuff worked out?
Yes, we
Okay.
do. They were able to get that, and that was kind of necessary for them to even move forward, right, and forming up and securing the contract for purchase. And so I'm not sure as it relates to, I know it's been cleaned up, the transition has occurred, but for seeing the actual development, the insides, I believe, right now kind of the low-hanging fruit is working on the residential component of it.
Right.
And then to follow that will be the community space, if my memory serves me correctly. I hope I'm not speaking out of school.
And not only is that going to be such a great use of a space that some of us were concerned might lay dormant for a while, but affordable housing that is going to be in there and created for working class folks. Talking also about housing over the next 2-3 months. You guys are going to be talking about short-term rentals. What might we expect there? I know you don't have to get into details because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of debate about various aspects or this zoning or that zoning. But what might we see over the next 2 or 3 months?
So what we've been looking at right now is determination of whether or not we should implement a matrix, kind of a grading system, a scoring system that can be used for each application that comes in. That's something that Mr. Sowers had brought forth and that the council's been reviewing. But for certain, what will happen is we will continue to assess the current ordinance and the zoning districts in which they're allowed by right and by special use to make sure that it makes sense. We've already made a little bit of changes on that earlier on. I anticipate that there will be some more changes to come with that.
I think folks are going to like that because at least maybe gives a little bit more safeguard that I guess some folks felt like it was the floodgates had opened, but really maybe not as many as people think. I think sometimes they see like public hearings listed for the planning commission and then the council, and they're thinking that maybe it's more than there are coming through. But definitely a hot issue. Glad that you all are digging deep into it and are going to address that. Another issue that's going to come up, I think you said you guys might be discussing this Monday night. Of course, we will be airing this on Wednesday after the fact. But, excuse me, the sheriff wants to charge the towns for providing animal control services after he just got a $12,000 raise for providing animal control services. So, thoughts?
Yeah, so again, I'm a team player. There's no I in team. So I don't want to be to suggest that we, the town, are not prepared to do our financial responsibility and to be a good community partner with our neighboring government here. However, it's been a system that's been in place that's worked well in the past. To your point, there was an allocation of funds to enable that department to continue to maintain that. And I am hopeful that we can work through this and figure out ways that we can support them, but keep it where it's at. And I don't know that the town of Luray is interested in getting into yet another.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys are going to compromise and try to work with the county, but I really do feel like it gets down to where what is a county service and what is a town service.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, is the town going to start charging county residents to go to Lake Arrowhead?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Fair.
how are town residents going to be treated differently at Battle Creek landfill?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a county service, I feel like the county should handle it. If it's a town service, but I can understand when they have big vet bills and problems and things with certain situations that it can get a little sticky, I guess we would say. So good luck with that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Extension of the Greenway out to Yeager Springs. Where are we at? What might we expect?
So the Greenway Foundation, I know that they are continuing to work on their fundraising efforts. It's on their website, and there's some, I believe, initiatives or efforts they've got planned for for calendar year 25 for fundraising that. But again, so we, the town, supported the study to determine what the financial investment would be for that, and I think myself and a few other council persons that I've spoke to intend to support that project as it moves forward, financially to be determined as to see what they come up with for funding on their own.
Not to put too much of my opinion out there, but because I'm here to interview you, but I would put that project on the same plane as the investment made out at Ralph Dean Park when we spent $1 million on a Little League field to draw those tournaments in. Mm-hmm. I think this is a historical tourist attraction that will add to the Greenway. I think it's going to be beautiful. I think everybody's going to be proud of it. It is getting a little costly, but I still think that the Greenway Foundation is willing to step up, do some fundraising, help the town with that. So I think that could be a very, very good project. Also, in terms of Parks and Rec, what might we see some changes out at Lake Arrowhead? I know there's been a number of discussions about operations, use of shelters, the beach, trouble finding lifeguards, et cetera, et cetera. Might we see some changes at Lake Arrowhead?
Yes, yeah, we anticipate you will, and there was some discussion a few meetings ago about that from Jen, our director there. But as the process in which we currently lease the shelters, that process has changed and improved for the purposes of being able to kind of control parking and access to the other facilities. We again will have dedicated staff. Just the roles of those positions will look different. There's an upgrade for technology, so that for the internet service, so that we will be able to then, if we do get to a point to where we want to talk about having a cost, again, it would not be to the locals, a cost for folks that are not, in our community, how we would police that to be determined. But we couldn't even entertain that last year because of the fact that anyone who goes out there with a cell phone, there's no service. So we're happy that we were able to get that extension for internet out there, security cameras, some new signage. So just working on increasing awareness about the rules for using the facilities, and again, making sure that folks are not going in there and taking up space when they've not properly reserved it, and being considerate to those that have.
Well, as we kind of wrap up a little bit here, I'm going to give you an opportunity to maybe punch on 2 or 3 more things that you think might be coming up this year.
Sure. So across the board, I think just thinking about our administration, as I mentioned earlier, with the police department, there was some staff, again, trying to maintain positions, and a lot of that just due to the nature of the work, and understandably so. But the government as a whole, the town of Luray, we, like any other industry, have had our fair share of challenges with employee attraction and retention. So I guess it's been maybe a year and a half ago or so, a couple of the directors, Lenny Matthews, Jen, they worked on a plan for professional development and opportunities where their teams could complete certain certifications and move up through the ranks. And what we found is that really improved the morale, and we have been able to retain some good staff. And so as we move into 2025, looking at efforts like that as it relates to, again, to professional development, succession planning, we have some long tenured employees, and we just want to make sure that we've done our due diligence and have those departments covered. With Parks and Rec, they're getting a new building, administration building up at Ralph Dean that will allow, again, just thinking about efficiencies and access, that's going to be a nice improvement. And let's see, I'm trying to think, I'm looking through my list here. There's so many things. Well, and again, as I mentioned earlier about the infrastructure. So we've got the SCADA out at our wastewater treatment plant, the sewer pump station. Again, all things that are going to be vital and necessary as we look at residential development to ensure that we've got the capacity to bring on new builds. And so. And then working with the treasurer, one thing that she was excited about this past year was improving the online access and payment for not just your water bill, but for meals taxing. So going forward into the new year, looking that we can have all tax and fee collections available to be paid online. We've got a lot of positive feedback from our residents on that. And coming up here soon is just working on a meaningful and balanced budget for fiscal year 26. So
budget time. Yeah,
there's a lot, and the comprehensive plan that, like as I mentioned earlier, that's going to be an all hands on deck. And so we have a long punch list. But
for those who don't know, the comprehensive plan is reviewed and updated about every 5 years, and it is a guiding light for a lot of zoning and other issues and decisions made by the council. And I've also heard some talk, I'll see it when it happens, but supposedly the 3 towns in the county are going to start having their joint meeting again about once a quarter maybe, and kind of share information with each other about what's going on. I think that's beneficial. I mean, sometimes folks feel like, well, we're just sitting around yapping, but I do think that exchange of information can be very helpful too. So I'm excited to see that pick back up again as well.
Yeah, as am I. Yes.
All right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yes.
So we're going to move on. Next week we're going to be talking with Stanley Mayor Michael Knight, but we want to thank Stephanie Lillard here, who is making history as Luray's first female mayor. We thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Right. Yep. And we thank Eleanor Arrington for all of her work behind the camera. And as always, we remind you to go down and visit the Page County Animal Shelter and help all of our furry friends find a forever home. Don't forget to like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next week, I'm Randy Arrington saying, enjoy that Page Valley living.